I can't believe 4 years flew by that quickly from when we first launched in 2019. A few things have changed since that time, and I'll take you for a moment on a wild and crazy journey that we have all been on. If we all pause for a minute and think about January of 2021, I won't keep you there too long. That's a nightmare nobody wants to return to. But January of 2021, it's the height of COVID, it's before the vaccine, and our new administration comes in, finding our way, making our way. And with great challenges come great opportunity. We faced internal struggles. We were still on a paper file system, which made COVID particularly hard. We got down to work and moved to an online case management system that's in over half the nation and over 80% of the prosecutorial offices in Arizona, so we better communicate with our public safety partners. We were in a homicide spike, and we went from restoring the homicide panel to running it every single Monday afternoon. And what that meant was 4 or 5 cases, all the top bureau chiefs in the office, we would review 4 or 5 cases all morning, review the paperwork, and in the afternoon we would have formal presentations to try to resolve 4 or 5 homicides every single afternoon. We had every Monday afternoon, we had 144 backlog of homicides waiting going back to 2017 that we needed to go through. And then we were in a heavy homicide spike from 2020 coming into 2021 when I arrived, and it persisted. I am extremely happy and very relieved to report that from October 30th of 2023 to 2 years ago, we are at a 32% drop in the homicide rate. I assure you that that has been a huge relief for our office and for law enforcement. It's that kind of drop breaks nationwide and statewide standards. But it's a reflection of the incredible hard work and metro collaboration with our public safety partners. In the last 6 to 9 months, we've really been feeling like we're finally leaving that period of being under constant crisis management and starting to really attack the priorities that we wanted to focus on. You know, we have enough breathing room and oxygen and space and staff to get at the things that we all really wanted to do, and I think that Pima County sent us to do. We opened up the county's first fraud and scam unit, and within the first year reached $1 million in restitution. We focus very much on both prosecution and a lot of prevention in our elder communities, in particular, a lot of prevention work to help people from falling for scams and fraud. In our free time, we handed out 18,463 gun locks last year, and collaborating with District 5, with Chairman Grijalva's district, we were able to get into the Crossroads gun show, and we actually have a table in there now where we can hand out gun locks at the exact moment of purchase. And we feel like we're making a lot of headway there. Just in the last 2 weeks, we have launched our first couple of pilot cases in the state's first adult restorative justice program. We're very, very excited about this. It's very victim-centric, and we're really hoping that we can provide an avenue of recourse that is is much more quick and much more effective for people who have suffered harm in our community, and looking for that kind of restoration. And internally as well, we were able to get the office's first agency-wide pay raise since 1997. That's really helped with retention, and it's a really great feeling of who's in the building now, and feeling like everyone's rowing in the same direction, which is just fantastic. I say all this, but I'm going to pivot for just a moment to, I think, questions of leadership. I could not have predicted what my civil division would end up focused on in my first term. So I'll remind you all that yes, I am the DA, right? I have the whole criminal division. You know, I am Southern Arizona's top law enforcement officer. We have the whole criminal division. But really importantly, I am the county's attorney. So we have a huge civil law firm in the office as well. And I could have never imagined that our civil law firm would end up focusing great time and attention to fundamental rights that we have held dear for decades. I think many of you in this room literally fought for some of the voting rights, reproductive health rights, safe elections, fair elections. You literally were out there fighting for them. And frankly, I'm of a generation that grew up just expecting to have these basic democratic rights. And instead, in 2022, 23, what we're finding is we ended up having to go up against the former Attorney General in court. And at the Court of Appeals, we won the stay of proceedings that is still in place right now, which allows reproductive health care to proceed safely statewide up to 15 weeks. And we're on the front lines working with our recorder. I am the legal advisor to the Pima County Recorder as the county attorney. And we're partnering with her and with our public safety partners to prepare for safe elections in 2024. It's taking up a great deal of time to handle misinformation, disinformation, and to prepare ourselves in case there is illegal threatening and intimidation of voters, and to be prepared for it, as other counties saw in the last cycle. So I think what I have found more than anything in the last couple of years is that the position of county attorney requires great courage. Yes, in the first 2 years, it was a lot of crisis management and it was a lot of creativity. I called it the COVID-born administrator. But it's the constant willingness to make the tough decisions and to make unpopular decisions because it's required. Because what you have to have as the county attorney is you have to have a county attorney who is willing to always do the right thing, which is the harder path and sometimes the unpopular path. And if we've learned anything, we don't know, frankly, what 2024 will bring. I mean, these are strange and dynamic times we're living in, and I feel ready for the challenge, which is why we pulled off the Band-Aid last week. But more than anything, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what's going on in your world. I want to hear what's on the front of your mind, and I've laid out, you know, some highline topics that we could talk about. But I'd be really happy to hear from you.
What did you mean when you said you pulled off the Band-Aid last week?
Well, Lillian, I'll tell you, it was almost as scary as the first time we ran for office. And of course, I had never run for office before, and had not had a dedicated, life intention for it at all. And so I remember, um, I remember we had written a press release, and then we all kind of just got frozen and couldn't hit send. We all just kind of got cold feet. There's a bit of fear involved, I think, in making your life this public, in putting yourself this far out, especially in the times we're living in. And then I remember just kind of, squeezing my eyes shut and hitting send, and it was it. And there was a similar feeling, last Wednesday, of looking at my beautiful family and how grateful I am for them and their willingness to do this with me. And like any good mom or wife or person of the world, you pause and think, should I do this to my life again? And the answer is yes. As I sit here with you now, I feel very good about it. I know I'm going to have some difficult times in the months to come ahead, but I'm feeling good about it now. I know that there's so much more work that we have to do, to finish what we've started and to fulfill promises that we made. And I also feel very, very lucky to be in the position that I'm in such difficult times. I think if I had been on the sidelines and not able to kind of take action in the areas of reproductive health and other areas, I would probably be going nuts. And so, it's a blessing to be able to put my hard work in. Thank you, Lillian.
Okay, well, Mike Bryan has a question for you, Mike.
Yeah, Gail Catamaras in the chat sent me a direct message. She wants to talk more about the Restorative Justice Project. So could you talk about the personnel involved, how many people are assigned, what are the results you've seen thus far with this program?
I would love to. So the idea of restorative justice is to try to restore, the victim to as nearly whole as possible. That's the overarching philosophy. And although we might be the only ones in the state doing it for adults, obviously, I always remark upon the inspiration from our tribal brothers and sisters who've been engaging in restorative practices since time immemorial. So I'll tell you, it has been a very difficult process to get it off the ground, because when you have to build something from scratch, it's going to take forever. You have to have patience. And we have an extraordinary director, Emmanuel Fahey, who's been out all over the county collecting volunteers. And then they went through, we partnered with the Center, which is a long-running Tucson, mediation group of trained certified professionals. And so we now have facilitators who have gone through extraordinary training, and then a second level of volunteers. And so what you have is you have a circle of dialogue led by a trained facilitator, and then you've got, trained volunteer community members to be there for support. It's completely victim-centric. The victim chooses whether they want their case to go into this or not. They're in control. And then if they choose restorative justice, they can come into the circle and they get the chance to actually ask the person why they did what they did, why they tore down their fence, why they damaged their property, whatever it is. They can be there in the room, or they can send a letter, or the victim advocate can go for them. If the victim is in complete control of the situation, and it requires a lot of the person who has caused harm. The normal system. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. The normal system of justice protects someone who has caused harm, right? As it should. It has to protect the defendant from, acting against their own interests. But in restorative justice, the person who has caused the harm has to sit there and listen to what they've done and to take account and a real reckoning for the harm that they've caused. And that's just incredibly powerful. And the results across the country are really phenomenal about victim satisfaction, and then also defendants never coming back into the system again. It's really exceptional. So we only have the first two cases are in the middle of it right now. But obviously I'm very excited to see how we go along.
Okay, well, we have a question for you, Laura, from Susie Anderson.
Hi, Laura. It's so good to have you on this program. You've really done a lot. Across the United States, the rate of homicides has risen over the last 3 years. So that is the same as Tucson. Now, the bail reduction program for indigent people. How do you feel about that? And are you going to help facilitate it?
Bail remains a top frustration for me, Susie. I'll tell you, and frankly, it's a point of agreement, strong agreement between myself and the chief and the sheriff. The cash bail system is failing us on both ends, and we have a number of examples where we have people who have paid bond and gone right back out to finish the violence they were committing when they came in. And then we have even more, exponentially more people who are trapped in the jail for no other reason than they can't pay a very low cash bond. I have draft legislation. We ran it last, I can't remember if it was last session or the session before that. We don't have strong hopes that the Arizona legislature would support reform this season, but we have a lot of hopes for the next. And you all know why, right? Because we are so close to flipping the legislature. So I want legislative change there. I'm going to continue to fight for it. But in the meantime, we train our special set of prosecutors who attend those detention hearings. They're called initial appearances. And we train them up and we refresh them every single month. And I do it personally to make sure that that we are only arguing for detention when we can clearly articulate an ongoing threat of harm. That's our standard.
Okay, Mike, do we have any other questions in the chat room?
Yeah, several. We have another question that what role do you have in helping neighborhoods deal with the relentless incidences of porch thieves, automobile break-ins, home break-ins, and other thefts and car thefts?
Yes, absolutely. We are inundated. When you're talking about certain kinds of package thefts and absolutely everything related to automobiles, it's likely going to be a felony. And so then my office is very, very involved. Auto thefts also went way up during COVID. And we have a special auto theft task force that we are a part of across Southern Arizona. So we see high level prosecutions of that. A lot of low level stuff that's happening in the neighborhoods are misdemeanors that are happening within the city of Tucson limits. And so the city of Tucson, the city attorney's office handles those, but we try to be the best partner that we can to them. And in the meantime, we're doing everything we can to try to use our power and our leverage to get people into substance use treatment, when it's clearly a substance use disorder or mental health, when there's a mental health issue going on board. And we've been using the phrase that the jail door should be the last door. When an officer encounters someone with a substance use disorder, they can take them to Kodak 24/7, 365 and drop them off, and it takes 10 to 12 minutes before the officer is back out on the streets. If an officer encounters someone who is having a mental illness, if an officer encounters someone with mental health issues going on, they can take them to the crisis response center, and it takes 3 to 5 minutes to make that drop off. 3 to 5 minutes, and they're back out on the streets. So we've been trying to say, the jail door is the last door when we're talking about people who are not causing harm to others.
So Rod Norris wants to know, in this time in history when public officials and their families are being threatened, are you, your staff, and others being threatened when you believe and do you believe there's a political basis for those threats?
It is a concern for me and my colleagues. I have a security detail now to take that as seriously as we need to, which is sad. I pushed it off as long as was appropriate. And it's something that the region takes very seriously. I think that all of our public safety partners are really, really helpful in that arena. But yes, it's unfortunately it is a concern. And I, social media doesn't help us in this regard. I think people just get more and more amped and more riled up, and with a lot of personal animus. These are dynamic times, as we said.
Yeah. Well, we had a very nice piece in the Washington Post yesterday by Wingate Sanchez about the status of the lawsuits against the fake electors here back in 2020. And one of our questioners asked whether you have any particular insights into that process, into that investigation, or if you have maybe reactions to having read that piece, if you have.
I can only say that it is being handled in the Attorney General's office, and that's the proper jurisdiction for it. And they have been clear. I think if you Google Dan Barr or Daniel Barr, that's Chris Mays's right hand chief deputy. And because he's been quoted with a little bit of updates on what's going on in Arizona over there, but and then that's it. That's really all I can say out loud. And it's it's because, like any good investigation, they're not going to talk about it too much in the media. So it'll have to just be a wait and see kind of situation.
I do have a question of my own. I would like to know how you're feeling about how your office is currently resourced by the Board of Supervisors, and if you think, or if you have ideas or an inclination as to how that's going to be challenged in the next 4 years going forward. Should you be reelected, what do you think your office is going to be spending more money, time, and resources on over the next 4 years?
Well, I go back to, we had our huge monumental salary overhaul in November of 21. It only took me 14 months, but we got it done. And then the board just went through a class and comp for the entire county, for all 7,000 Pima County employees, which was an incredible behemoth undertaking. And if I thought the first agency-wide pay raise since 1997 was a big lift, for some 380 employees, the first county-wide effort since 1957 was a massive undertaking for nearly 7,000 employees. And it all really helps. We are extremely active in that. We have to make sure that our attorneys are competitive, at least with other governmental agencies, and we've finally achieved that, because it's tremendously important. There are people there who are just true dedicated civil servants, but you can't run an entire agency that way. You have to pay people appropriately, and frankly, they earn it and they deserve it. They work extraordinarily hard under some of the most difficult circumstances, working with the most difficult material. So it's a highline priority for me that I'm always personally in the mix on, and it's part of why we need an employee-friendly board, a board that values Pima County employees and wants the best for our community. And that's really important when we look at our board candidates.
Okay, Susie Anderson has another question.
Do most of your staff do what they do because of a deep caring about the victim and the perpetrator? What kind of people do you have that will take on a city or county job rather than be in private practice?
Susie, those are really good questions. It does take special people, right? Because they can go work at private law firms for 2 and sometimes even 3 times the amount of money, and that's a problem. I mean, and they can walk out the door and do that. So it takes a certain kind of calling. We do, and we have benefits too, and we focus on that. We can get our people into court, litigating in court and into trials and in front of judges, making arguments and really building really good skills. So we have our arguments on the other side as well. And then the other thing too is we're looking to make it the happiest and healthiest place to work that we can. And we do a ton of morale stuff. On Friday, everybody was encouraged to wear their Diamondbacks gear, for example. And then tomorrow we have a huge floor by floor Halloween contest going on that Jan Lesher is going to come over and be the judge for. So we have to make sure that we're keeping them in constant mind. And also, I think our family first, health first way of administrating is also very welcome, especially in these times. And the last thing I'll tell you, Susie, is that we've had I think it's pretty clear that we probably have one of the most diverse senior leadership teams for any agency in the county. I mean, it's far and away, and I was a little surprised at how effective that actually was in recruiting for the whole rest of the agency. But I think when you can see yourself there and you picture yourself there and you're looking at that senior leadership team, where people of color are in the highest levels of power, then you see yourself with us. And that's been just beautiful. It's increased our number of bilingual staff and attorneys. And by bilingual, I'll also say trilingual and quadrilingual. It's amazing. These kids, right? These kids these days. And it's been beautiful. We've got such diversity of people and of minds to tackle the hardest issues of the day, and it's been fantastic.
Okay, Mike, do we have another question in the chat room?
Rod Norris would like to know what plans you're making to handle any interference that may occur with the November 2024 election.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're literally like in high-level regional trainings. There's a wonderful center that's focused on this out of Georgetown Law that just visited, and all of the high-level officials, including law enforcement, were there. One of the real key things is that the FBI tracks intelligence in a real quiet way, kind of behind the scenes, whereas local police and offices like myself that are deeply embedded in the community see a different kind, right? We often actually kind of are closer to people who are being intimidated. And so literally just making those conversations happen, like being the host to make sure that the FBI is talking to TPD and TPD is talking to the FBI, and that we're in the mix, has been really, really helpful. And I want to say too that the people in place right now in the top levels of the FBI for the state of Arizona that have been placed here are incredible. They are so active. They are so responsive. They have been just tremendous, very present with us regularly. And I think that's huge. I think it takes that communication and having those close relationships before something bad happens that really makes the difference in trying to tamp it down. We also belong to the Carter Institute's Arizona Democracy Resilience Network, which includes all of those people too, and really brings in the faith community as well, in their hopes of trying to fight against misinformation. That's kind of a fascinating group of people as well that the Carter Institute launched here 2 years ago. So 2022 was actually kind of a dry run for us. And knock on wood, things went well in Pima County. So we'll see what happens next.
Okay, Lillian Fox has a question.
Okay, you may not have a role in this, but if you do, I'd kind of like to know what it is. I have a friend who has dementia. She has no family, nobody to help her except me and another neighbor. She's been notified her lease is going to be non-renewed next September. And it's because she was down there 3 times in 1 week complaining people were trying to break into her apartment. Nobody was trying to break into her apartment.
Oh.
She has good Social Security, but she's never applied for her retirement, and she's entitled to retirement. She refuses to see a doctor. Her clothes are filthy because she doesn't wash her clothes, and she's losing weight because she doesn't eat on a regular basis. I take her to lunch 2 or 3 times a week, but is there any role you have in working with people with dementia who maybe need to be in assisted living as opposed to where they are?
Lillian, I'm so sorry to hear this. This is so heartbreaking, and it happens more often than we want to believe. I was working on something similar to this morning. So Title 36 can be looked at for someone who is persistently and acutely disabled. And if you can't get someone to go to the doctor, you may want to consider, if it gets bad enough, that this might be a call to 988, and to see if you could get like a check welfare on her, because these are
yeah, that's been done a couple of times and it doesn't seem to produce any results.
The 2 other things that are coming to mind right now is Adult Protective Services, and the other call I would place is the public fiduciary. Because when someone does have a steady income from, you mentioned,
Social Security.
there you
Yeah.
go, there you go. And then they can apply for the retirement that she's not collecting, because what she needs, I think, is a guardian. So
Right.
I would definitely try the public fiduciary. They are wonderful people. They're actually on the 3rd floor of my building, and they do very special work.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a lot more common than people realize, that there are a lot
Yes.
of people who really do not have family members anymore who can help them.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so Mike, we have one last question in the chat room.
Yeah, how can we help your campaign the most?
Oh my goodness, you guys are all so wonderful. I appreciate it very much. I will simply put lauraconover.com in the chat. Again, I'm on my lunch hour and proudly wearing my t-shirt. I'm off the clock. And I could use all the help we can get. The county Republican Party tried to make a run at getting Blake Masters to run against me because he lives in Tucson and has a JD. That was the recent push recently, and it goes to show that the party would love to have throw a ton of money at someone to see if they can't get to it. And again, our top level concerns, my core values are your core values. Everything we talked about this past hour, right? Reproductive health, voting rights, all of it. And we need to make sure that we're continuing to push in the right direction and united. And so lauraconover.com is going to get you to an opportunity to contribute, an opportunity to sign up to help me gather signatures, to volunteer, and we do now have these very cool t-shirts, yard signs, stickers, buttons, everything. If you can see the shirt one more time before I fade away. And I can't thank you all enough. You guys are all dedicated volunteers, again, just when we need you most. And you could easily wave it all off and say the world's gone crazy and I'm gonna just do my own thing in peace. And instead you're here talking about the issues of the day, and it means the world to the rest of the community.
Wonderful.
Susie Anderson
And
signs
Mike,
off
does
with Laura, thank you for working toward reducing scams for the elderly. As one of that group, I'm a little more aware of some of the areas to be careful of, but she wants to thank you for making that a focus of your work.
That I really appreciate that. We did so much in that first year, so many lectures on prevention and like our fraud tips on our website, and we worked so hard to try to keep people as safe as we could. I that means a lot to me. Thank you. You guys are amazing.
okay.
ODGT.
Yay, Laura, we really appreciate you. You did a great job as always. I do want to salute one of our staff today, and that's Mike Bryan. Mike is our vice president of program and really has lined up a wonderful array of programs over the years. And he also graciously always agrees to staff the chat room, and he does a great job with it. So Mike, kudos, buddy.
Thank you.
Amen. Woo!
Okay, so without further ado, one last thing. My email is now at the very end of the newsletter. So if you have any feedback, any ideas, any suggestions, just go ahead and email me at jndanishevsky, the number 1, @gmail.com. And again, it's at the end of the newsletter. So take good care and have a great, happy Halloween. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you soon.